You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network.
Pierna derecha, directo al arco. ¡Golazo! 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 ¡Golazo!
This is Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio, your new live show about the beautiful game in all its glory, with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee. MLS, EPL, La Liga, Champions League, all is fair game. Powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us at sportspodcastingnetwork.com.
Kevin, how you doing, buddy? You okay?
I'll be fine. It's kind of a rough Sunday of sports for me, Duane. If you look at that, started early in the morning, Milos lost, and Canada's not going to Rio, and then France lost in extra time. Rough weekend.
It was a rough weekend. I capped it off, and we're actually pre-taping this because of some issues tomorrow. But we're happy to get this out for you. This is a combination Soccer Today, Two Solitudes podcast. Hope you enjoy it. I just got back from watching Noel Gallagher, the former Oasis head man, I would say, because he was the brains of the operation. Liam was the id. But there we go. So that's what I did. Just heard Wonderwall and the Master Plan, and good show as always. It's I think the 10th time I've seen either Noel Gallagher or Oasis play in the last 20 years. So good time for me. Helped ease out the end to celebrate the end of the Euro.
And the soccer tie with the Gallagher brothers. I'm not even surprised that you're a fan, Dwayne, for some reason.
No, I'm a huge Oasis fan, and you nailed it. There's always a lot of the sky blue at a Noel Gallagher, at a Gallagher show or at an Oasis show if they ever do come back. We were joking at the end with friends of mine that go to the shows all the time. It's like Noel said in the show kind of like was because there was a whole potato incident this week, and the Gallaghers are fighting again. So the sky is blue and water is wet, but yes. At any rate, it's like, there'll never be an Oasis reunion show, and no, there will be. The money's too big for them to not eventually get back and do those shows, but they still, if you ever have a chance, and if you are an Oasis fan, go watch the Gallagher show. No Gallagher, he does play a lot of Oasis stuff, and his solo stuff is great. Anyway, it's a good time today, and it was a nice way to end what was a really fun kind of weekend of sport, even though some of the results didn't go our way.
No, exactly. Let's start there. Today we'll have on the show, Duane, the Euro review and a Canadian review at the end. France, Portugal. In wrestling term, I'm going to use a wrestling term here because, when a bad guy becomes a good guy, we call this a babyface turn. And you know what I have seen today, Duane? I have seen the babyface turn of Cristiano Ronaldo. Going from a bad guy to a good guy, and Messi is now the heel.
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually tweeted it out, and I'm not the wrestling guy. I tweeted that Ronaldo was like a heel that 25% of the audience loved, and the other 75% wanted to poke in the eye. So I think maybe you're suggesting that it's flipped around today. Getting hurt early and then standing on the sidelines, cheering his team on to victory.
Literally taking the spot of the manager. He was in the box. He was in the other technical area. He was for me, who was actually I wasn't crying. I wasn't distraught. I wasn't distressed either. I was kind of just there, wide open, in silence, and just looking at it. But Ronaldo, the way he, with hindsight, and after like a few hours after, I rewatched the replay, rewatched a couple parts of the game, and Ronaldo's not a good guy.
Well, there you go. And the Messi just did the flip. So it's going to be SummerSlam's going to be amazing next summer. So is that what you're saying?
Messi, Ronaldo for all the marbles.
All the marbles. Is that a SummerSlam main event, or is that's WrestleMania? It's got to be WrestleMania. Eh?
Hey, it's kind of apropos too, because Brock Lesnar actually won a UFC match on Saturday for an actual wrestler too. So hey, quite a weekend, Duane. It all blends in.
I know, and there was a wrestling here at the TFC game yesterday. It was funny because there was a Keith Urban concert and some kind of WWE event and TFC were all mixed together in 1 square kilometer. It was kind of an interesting little mix of people down there.
And and they all intersect either way, so it's very, very weird. But and that's on top of Pokemon Go this weekend. So quite an interesting weekend, I have to say.
All right. Do you want to do a quick little break? We'll come back and we'll break down the Euro. We'll be a little more serious, break down the Euro, and then we'll come back with Canadian Review. You want to do that right now?
Hey, it's Kevin of the Sports Podcasting Network. On SPN, on top of What's the Score, the Sports News Quiz, you can find a plethora of great sports podcasts. Hardwood Radio, Gridiron Radio, Sports, It's in the Game, Scuderia F1, the second most listened to F1 podcast in the whole world, Soccer Today, live radio shows like Open Lines After Dark, MLS Postgame Show, Two Solitudes Soccer Podcast, Off the Woodworks, and much, much more. All that on the Sports Podcasting Network.com.
Can't believe it's over.
Yeah. 51 games. Exactly a month has flown by like a week.
You heard that snap of the fingers. Exactly.
Yeah.
Look, it was a tournament, and I think at the end of this segment, we'll do a little bit of a tournament retrospective, sort of a hot take retrospective of the tournament as a whole. But certainly today's match was a fitting end, I think, to the tournament based on how it went overall, in the sense that, the underdog won. It wasn't pretty at times. The goal was pretty, though. And ultimately, people are going to complain about this. They are, because they're going to say they had the easy draw. They were a third place finisher, et cetera, et cetera. But you know what they did with that? They did what was put in front of them. And that's a true champion wins when they're supposed to. And Portugal, I don't care what anyone says, regardless of the draw, regardless of the third place finish, regardless of how they weren't inspiring at times, they won when they had to. So they are the champions, Kevin.
It's kind of weird that I think you nailed it. This game itself is like a microcosm of the entire tournament too. You saw injuries to key players coming out. You saw the crowd in full force cheering for both teams. Atmosphere was quite, it's hard to pinpoint the actual word to describe it, but I had cheers down my spine when Marseillaise was playing with 80,000 people singing it. It was one of the sights that I'm never going to forget, and I wasn't even there, So the whole tournament, this game, it represents a whole tournament, I believe. I think you're right. It went to extra time. It went to close to penalties, but not quite. A unknown, or not necessarily unknown, but a guy that a striker that usually never scored the winning goal. And of course, Ronaldo told him when he walked in, dude, you're going to score the winning goal. Chin up. Okay, granted, we didn't hear him say to probably like 5 other guys, which he probably did. So you have better odds of this happening. But, the whole story, with hindsight, it's kind of a fitting end to the tournament. And tactically, quickly, too, Duane, defensively, this tournament was very defensive on the pitch. And this game was too. And it's a way where it's finished. I talked about last week how maybe offense, maybe France and the offense will win this tournament. No, it was a cagey tournament. And one of the most cagey team won it.
Well, exactly. And again, and I want to reiterate that one last time, the champion is the champion is the champion, right? Like, it doesn't matter to me that they were a third place team. The rules are the rules. Every team was playing under the same scenario. Every team was playing under the same sort of opportunities. And Portugal came in as a third place team, and they won the games when they had to win them. And they beat Croatia, which I thought was a massive thing for them to do, to get by them, because that, to me, was the team that I thought had the best chance to come out of that side. So once they did that, the Welsh were playing well when they won that game. And obviously France were consistently throughout the tournament the team that was most able to get the results when it mattered. And I think most of us today, when the game started, assumed that the French would find a way. However, the first 20 minutes or so, they were on the front foot, and then the injury happens. And it's funny, the injury. Let's talk about that real now, because it's obviously going to be the main talking point, and something that's going to be talked about for years and years and years. When you first saw it happen, the initial instinct with Ronaldo is always he's diving, right? Like, that's his reputation. That's what people assume. But
the challenge was hard, though, by Like, it was legal. There was nothing wrong against it. But the fact that after the fact, we saw the replay and the famous image that you've probably seen where you see his foot planted and his knee totally facing the other way. And he gets a huge hit right there on the side, right probably on the medial ligament. So, and he tried. Like, you saw the pain in his face and the mouth. Yeah, that's different. But you saw the pain, and he was battling inside. How should I get subbed off, or should I want to play because it's my opportunity? It was so weird.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, he's a smart enough guy, and any player would be in that situation when you're playing for a team like Portugal, to realize this is probably, at that point in time, 20 minutes into a European Championship, they probably aren't going to be as close to winning a title again. Do you think Portugal's going to be in the World Cup final in 2 years' time? Do you think they're going to be in the European Championship final in 4 years' time?
The odds are very slim.
It doesn't seem likely, right?
The odds are very slim, yeah.
Yeah, so here we are. Despite being the underdog in this, you still have to assume that this is, probably your best chance in quite a long time to get this done. So it was clear, though, and I said this at the time, and I joked about it even on Twitter, the fact that I tried to defend him in the pub that I was at when he first went down. I said, actually, I think he's really hurt. And people were like, oh, shut up, and blah, 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 even after they saw the replay. But then, yeah, when a guy comes in and out like that, and he was down the tunnel and he comes back out, and yes, he was walking pretty solidly, but you know what? They probably shot him up with something in the knee, right?
Yep. That famous spray, right? They gave him right like a couple times on the sideline.
Yeah, and he wasn't feeling any pain at that point in time, but he had no lateral strength, no ability to cut. And at that point, you got to give him credit for, as much as the tough guy kind of stuff wants to come out, that he realized that, the old adage about his 75% of Ronaldo better than, as much as we joke that it probably really isn't.
Well, not when the 25% missing is him being mobile. You know what I mean? Him running after the ball, if that is missing, and he tested it too. There's a good image made on TSN by Christian Jack where they highlight where he actually tests it. It's about the 17th minute. He gets the ball, clear space in front of him, and he goes on a run with it. And you can tell right away, he passes the ball, raises his hand. He's like, no, I can't do this. I don't have the strength in my legs. I can't run. I can't cut. There's no way I can do this without actually impeding my team.
And very few of us will ever be in a situation like that where you are playing, probably the biggest game of your career. I suspect in his mind, he's been in Champions League finals, obviously. He's been in another European Championship final, but he lost it. So it's the biggest game certainly in the last decade of his career. To have that kind of sinking feeling in your gut, to know that you can't go on, as much as I'm not the biggest Ronaldo fan, like many of the people listening probably aren't, you still have to empathize a great deal with a guy like that who is truly, one of the world's greats. I had as any final will bring, they'll bring casuals in, right? And I was at a birthday party today when I was watching it, and one of the guys that I was with, they weren't really soccer fans, and they went, so explain to me, in terms I'll understand what this means. And all I could think of is to say it's like Messier going down or Lemieux going down with an injury in the Canada Cup final or something in 1987, right? Like that's the only thing I could come down to. It was a superstar going down in the biggest game of his career, and that's not something that anyone, no matter how much you'd like to cheer against Ronaldo sometimes, and we're all guilty of that, you never want to see it, Kevin.
No, and that's why I was kind of happy to see him join the team when the final whistle blew, gave him, between extra time ball, between the regular game and extra time, he had a chance to come out back on the pitch and be on the sideline and talk to the guys and be the motivator and be like the assistant in quote unquote, because it's his team. But he was able to do that and come back, and it was kind of nice to see. Yes, when it was going on, that's not what I was saying. But now, many hours later, yes, it was kind of, I had the feels, to use today's lingo, when I was watching Ronaldo there, cheering his team, really taking this to heart. And one thing Ronaldo always been criticized, that only cares about himself. He was cheering on 11 other guys. He was not caring about himself in that moment. And it's one thing we didn't really see from Ronaldo a lot. Then that's one of the reasons why he has a lot of detractors. So it was kind of good to see this today too.
Yeah, no, he is a bit of a me generation player for sure in people's minds. So certainly today it was a bit turned. I was thinking, because I do the work with Ligue 1, how all I kept thinking of is that technically the fourth official should have told him to leave the technical area because the players aren't supposed to be up there. But that would have been a really brave and pedantic fourth official.
Yeah, you go tell him. You tell him.
Yeah, exactly. It's the European Championship. You got to go tell Ronaldo to sit down. He really should have, though. I'm sure there were other referees watching this that went, he should be sitting down. He's not a coach.
I've seen Jesse March receive suspensions because of this. So.
Yeah, exactly. That would have been a very brave fourth official that would have told Ronaldo to sit down.
Okay, you're off. Go back in the locker room. You'll miss the celebration.
Yeah. Did you notice that he put the captain's armband? It was interesting. They handed him the captain's armband back for the trophy presentation. I found that interesting.
Yes, and it's not him. The other players gave it back to him.
Yeah,
it was. Yeah.
I mean, look.
It was fitting. No, but you're right. What you mean by that is, look, as much as we want to talk about how we think it's Ronaldo and the rest feel it's Ronaldo, their leader. So that's what that image meant as well.
Look, he is a divisive character in the world, and what I tweeted out,
a polarizing factor,
when I tweeted out the 25% love him, 75% hate him, I think that's probably pretty close to true. The 25% that love him. I mean, they're either Portugal or Real Madrid fans, or maybe some United fans still hanging around, but they love him to death because he's such a brilliant player. And they see, if you watch him game in, game out, day in, day out, I suspect you see more of the team stuff coming out, more of the more grander personality, like the charitable guy. And, I certainly know from having read stuff and seen stuff that he does a lot of charity work back in Portugal. He does very connected to his origins, his genesis there. So certainly I don't deny for a second or doubt for a second the sincerity of his emotions to win a championship, to win the first major title for Portugal, a small country that has a grand history in the game, but this being their first major title, I can't doubt that was an incredible moment for him, even if he only had 20 minutes in the final to participate. And here's the thing too, he won that game against Wales, right? It's not that Ronaldo didn't play his role in this tournament.
No, exactly. And you remember that back heel flick that he did a few weeks ago to score a goal in the group stage? No, he did play his part in this tournament.
Yeah. And, you brought it up as a joke in the intro, but, I mean, the conversations, it's always been Messi. Ronaldo has always been the driving conversation, barstool conversation that exists in soccer over the past 5 or 6 years. I mean, this really shifted that argument a little bit. It is hard to deny 2 of the last Champions League finals, the European Championship in the last 3 years. That's pretty impressive. And maybe Messi has a greater goal-scoring ability. I do believe Messi's probably the greatest natural finisher of all time, but you have to really start to look at Ronaldo and wonder whether or not he isn't the world's best right now. And certainly if you are someone who ascribes to the idea that winning is the most important thing of all, he's done it. He's done it with Portugal now, and that's something that Messi can't say with Argentina, especially glaring this summer, right?
Is there such a thing as a leader of men, that intangible factor that Ronaldo might have that Messi just can't channel?
Yeah. Who's to say? And obviously we know other stuff about the Argentina that was going on. So it's probably not completely fair to break it down to that 1v1, but the world is going to do that, so we might as well do it too. And I will fully admit that I have biases that prevent me from maybe appreciate him as much as I should. But I think I did learn to appreciate him during this tournament a little bit more, and learn to appreciate Portugal a little bit during this tournament. And that's kind of where I came out of it at the end. I wasn't cheering for Portugal. I live in Toronto. I did make the same jokes about honking horns and being frustrated by Portuguese fans. But by the time they ended up winning it, I was like, good on ya. I mean, you got it done. And this is a program that has had a lot of great teams over the past 15, 20 years that never got it done, even though they were great. Mm-hmm. So the fact that they managed to do it when probably no one expected them to, I'm just going to stand back and applaud and tell them to enjoy their night, because they've certainly, even if they weren't maybe the best team, on the field and aesthetically this tournament, they have been in the past. So it's not like there isn't something well earned with what they did today.
But let's not forget that 1 millimeter further to the right in the 92nd minute, and André Pierre Gignac would have closed that game before extra time. It was that close, like a millimeter to the right, it would have bounced in. But no, it hit the post at the exact spot where it bounced back into play.
Hell, a little bit of spin might have played that in too.
Exactly.
It was, you can't miss any narrower than he did, and certainly I'd forgot about that to this very moment. But that was a moment that was kind of the moment that I went, Portugal's winning in my mind.
They're gonna win now because of that miss, and even before that, Griezmann missed a couple header. France got lucky though, hit the post a couple times in extra time for Portugal. So all in all, I think the result is fair. To be quite honest, and to finish there, France worked hard. They played well. They beat Germany in the semifinals. They almost got the winning goal in the final. They galvanized the country. They were able to rally the troops and make a country that was suffering on the healing side of things, and we're able to make people forget about their daily problems or what's going on in the state of the world in Europe right now, and cheer for a team that's mixed races, mixed religion, and mixed faces, and we're able to get behind that team. And just for that, I think the French Football Federation needs to be applauded as well.
No, fair. And yeah, we'll move to the French here. Last thought on Portugal, and then I'll move to the French. The Rule 12s, right? I mean, they were the victim of it 12 years ago.
It actually worked out.
And it is a rule of 12. It was a team that wasn't fancy that won it. They maybe have a bigger history than the ones before, but I think that the rule of 12 is happening again.
It applies. I think we can call it here. It applied. Yeah. It is one of those.
Denmark, Greece, Portugal now, and Portugal returned the favor. So maybe we were joking again on Twitter after the game. He's like, "Oh, what's going to happen? Who's going to win 12 years' time?" And I went, "It's going to be someone completely unfancied, like maybe England."
Oh.
Anyway, yeah, the French. Look, a couple things about the French. This was post '98 the most team concept French team I've seen in terms of everyone seemed they were on the same page. They seemed to be firing on all cylinders. There didn't seem to be any drama behind the scenes. They did seem to be playing for the flag, playing for the badge, right? And I think that was nice to see. And they would have been obviously worthy winners. And I don't think that they were particularly losers, even though they lost this game. Certainly, the reaction of the crowd was appreciative at the end, if disappointed. And I think that it's probably a bit unfortunate that they hit Portugal with all things going their way and sort of karma on their side. But nonetheless, a worthwhile host effort, in my opinion.
Yes, and not just that. I think they've laid the foundation for the program for the next 2 to 4 years. In Russia, there's nothing that say that France won't be a deserved contender in Russia. Yes, they might have got lucky against Germany, but they got the job done against one of the top, if not the top. Well, they're the world champion, so they beat the world champion in the Euro to make their way to the final. And I do believe that because of the way that it happened, and yes, they made some tactical errors, they went out of their way because of good results they had, so they decided to continue with feeding Griezmann when as a team it's more 4-3-3 and more build possession and move the whole block. They went away from this because of good results, and fair enough, they're going to have to work harder to go back to the instinct of their own tactics, but they have a lot of time to work on this. And in 2 years from now, I do feel that France, with the results they just had, could be considered a contender for Russia. Early one, at least.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I mean, I think that, it's early days, but I think Germany will probably be one of the favorites again.
Canada.
I think obviously you have to consider France right in there.
Canada.
Yeah.
We're still in it. We're still in it for once,
The favorite to win the World Cup. Yes. That's exactly what Canada's going to. We're going to win it. Screw making it. We're winning it.
Hey, go big or go home.
I sometimes do that joke, yeah. Oh, well, you mean make the World Cup, right? No,
yes. No.
Winning it.
But hey, for once, usually when we talk about World Cups in 2 years before World Cup, we're never in it already. We're already gone. At least we're still there.
So you're saying there's a chance. All right.
That chance is still there.
Let's move overall in the tournament. I mean, that's just, it obviously is going to be hot takeness right now. What is, to me, I think of this tournament right now, I have my enduring image of the tournament, despite the fact Portugal wins, is, boy, it's Iceland, and it's the clap, and it's what they did and how they sort of inspired a lot of people, the small country getting it done. The Icelandic, are the winners that didn't win in many ways. The Welsh too, but the Iceland and the clap and all
the Welsh
that.
didn't have a clap. They didn't have a chant. They just sing God Save the Queen like the other two teams, so it's not the same.
The photo that everyone knows, the photo of them leading the clap, like that's the endearing image of this tournament. And look, if that's what the tournament's remembered for, there's worse things to be remembered for.
Yeah, well, especially the way it started. Remember that England and Russia game? How long ago that feels? Those battles and all that? The tournament moved away from it, and things got back into normal. And a couple days in, there's not the feeling that we had.
Yeah. And look, I guess maybe we should address that a little bit. That's the negative side of this. And obviously there's a lot of concern about what that means for Russia. And the side there says it all. I mean, UEFA kind of fluffed it off today in their press conference. They said, oh, we dealt with that and we moved on. Like, they don't want to talk about it. But, I mean, obviously, someone's going to have to talk about it at some point.
Yep.
That said, in the lead up to the tournament, we were worried about violence of a more organized and political nature, and that didn't materialize. And I think we can all thank whoever we want to thank for that, Kevin. And that it is great that this tournament went through without any incidents other than the Russian stuff, which is fan stuff that's not ideal, but it's not.
I'll take this over the other scenario any day.
Yeah, and absolutely, we're thankful for that, for whoever we thank, as I said.
Yeah, well, about probably the 100,000 security people that work the tournament, so I would thank them.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that you have to talk about stuff like that in these major events, and we're going to watch another one in a couple weeks' time. But, it's the reality. And I actually said this to my mother, who's paranoid that I'm going to die if I ever go to one of these major events. I always tell her it'd probably be the safest place in the world, because there's nowhere else you're going to find that much security.
Exactly. And, no, it's true, but it is what it is, and you have two choices, Duane, when it happens. You mention it, or you don't. So,
yeah. All right, and we're happy nothing happened there. Any other, obviously the England stands out as a story throughout this because they imploded again. I think they imploded in a different kind of way this time. It was a little, they seem to be regressing, and I suspect that's why a lot of people are really reacting a lot to this. I didn't think anyone was fancying them before the tournament. I think some people like to play that narrative off a bit too much that, the English are delusional. Well, I don't think the English are delusional at all. They know exactly where they're at, and that's what frustrates them. so that's a storyline there, too. And apparently they're committed to hiring an English coach. Big Sam is the
Sam Allardyce.
Just makes you shake your head. What the hell are they thinking?
Because there's no relegation battle in international football, so that's why I'm wondering why they hire him. But anyways.
Yeah, well, they could not make a World Cup again. That's possible.
They're good at that.
It's been 20 years since they hadn't, so we'll see. Yeah, look, was it a great tournament? All tournaments have their own thing, their own vibe to it. And look, as I said, Iceland was fun. Wales was fun. The English were always a story. We had bad stuff that was going on, too. The football was a little cagey, as we talked about. There's no such thing as a bad major international football tournament. This wasn't one that's going to go down in the ages, for the ages, I should say. I don't think. We're not going to be talking about these games for lifelong, like 25, 30 years from now. But there were moments, and at the end, the team that won, regardless of what you think about them, regardless of how they did it, they're always worthy winners. The end result is never wrong.
Exactly.
All right. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll jump across the ocean, and we'll talk a little bit about North America.
The Canadian Review on the Two Solitudes Soccer Podcast.
Kevin, there's been a long history of Canadians that move from the east to the beautiful mountains of the west to get that sunshine and the mountain air and all that peacefulness out there. It's so pretty. And I just like to welcome Tobias to Vancouver. From Torontonians, we wish him well. And I hope you people in Vancouver, you enjoy Tobias out there now.
Some people with bad intentions would say that a certain writer brought Tobias with him from the East Coast to the West Coast.
Maybe. Or Squizzato, someone like that.
Well, that's who I was referring to.
Yeah, Squizzato brought him out there. So you enjoy the mountains, Tobias.
Stay there.
Look, that
well,
game...
there and Montreal apparently too, because, Montreal can't keep a clean sheet late in the game apparently as well.
Yeah, it's tough. Look, I mean, MLS is a funny league that way. It's a league that is often won by teams that are the fittest. So the ability to shut teams down and to keep those clean sheets and to close out 1-0 games and 1-goal wins, that's really what sets apart MLS teams. So I don't want to blow it up too much, the fact that they did score a late goal, so everything was going great, but then they blew it again in Vancouver and ended up dropping 2 points. But at the same time, as we saw here in the city that I live in for years and years and years and years, it's a bit of a killer to constantly drop points in stoppage time. So they can't really be overly thrilled with it, Kevin.
No, exactly. And if you're looking at all the Canadian teams in MLS this weekend, 2 out of 3 dropped 2 points one on the road, one at home. but they were missed opportunities. And in a standing that's close, especially in the Eastern Conference, Montreal will rue the 2 points dropped in Real Salt Lake. Vancouver will rue those 2 points as well because they felt they can get better and get results and go back on a winning side of thing. For Vancouver, they need to score goals. They need to show people that, look, we're good enough. We have goal-scoring capabilities because that's what's missing. So, it's yes, they scored a couple, at least in this one. They got one late. But they did the one thing that usually was what they were able to do, like not concede a goal late if you go back to earlier years.
Yeah, I mean, here's the other thing with the Whitecaps, too, who are right on the red line right now. They tied with Portland at 25 points, so they're in danger of slipping below that if the results don't go the right way. But 29 goals allowed right now. 33 goals allowed right now. That is worst in the Western Conference, and that is something that no one expected from them this year. In fact, if you extend their goals against record to the entire league, they are only 1 goal off of the worst in the league. And Vancouver's prided itself on its defensive abilities. And as much as we like to talk about their need to bring in a game-breaking scorer, maybe they just got to go back to doing what they did well last year. That might be something they need to focus on a little bit more than going out to try and find something else. Obviously, they have the DP slot now, and that's going to be a lot of attention is going to be on who they're going to bring in to fix the scoring. But to me, when you're allowing 33 goals, are you trying to follow the TFC 2015 model, guys? I know you're going to love that comparison, but honestly,
it's not a good one. Don't follow it.
So here we go. You're going to follow the 2015 Toronto FC without Javenko. So
without the most important part of it, the goal scorer.
Godspeed, guys. Enjoy that. No, I mean, maybe their DP slot should be used to bring in someone to solidify the back line because it's halfway through the year now, and maybe this isn't a blip anymore. This is something that's happening. They're not defending this year.
No, exactly. No, well, yes, but it's the Western Conference. It's not necessarily an easy situation, but like you mentioned, they're 6 tied with Portland, both equal literally across the board outside of the differential, and they're -4 there. So if things come to shove, as we say, Vancouver will be outside of that red line. So it's interesting time in Vancouver, and pressure is starting to build.
All right, fair enough. Let's move to your neck of the woods, although it was way in the middle of nowhere, the game this weekend. Talk a bit about the Impact's result, half empty, half full of that draw.
Yeah, it's because it's the way it happened. Montreal was up 1-0 with a Harry Ship goal, his first for the Montreal Impact since joining the club in the offseason. He was able to poach a goal, a Laurent free kick, very heavy, right on target. He might have learned one thing or two while he was at the Euro, but right on target, Raimondo couldn't handle it, and Ship was right there to poach it in. 1-0. Stayed like this for a long time. Montreal was able to stay defensive, stay compact. A late penalty, and a great penalty by Real Salt Lake player Vician, or something, probably butchering his last name, but that is the closest I could probably say with my accent. He scored that penalty to tie it up and then finished 1-1. And for Montreal, it's a missed opportunity because you had a chance to bridge that small gap that has now have been created on top of the Eastern Conference. New York, Philly, 29 points. Montreal, 25. New York, 24. Toronto, 23. There is a small gap between the second and the third place. Montreal, with 3 points, would have had 27. They would have been in good position to at least not get caught out of position and have a more than one game, one result difference between the first and second and there. Now, there's a gap, and it's a missed opportunity. It's not a big deal when you're looking at the whole situation. No Drogba, and you still have a lot of injuries for Montreal. But it's an opportunity that you are winning late in a game on the road, and you have to close out those games in Major League Soccer to make it far, at least, or to make it top of the East.
Yeah, look, I mean, the half full part of this, obviously Drogba wasn't there, so you have that. And what's the situation there? Is this just kind of the precautionary midseason, kind of give him some rest to make sure everything's going to be okay?
He had a few knock on the neck, thighs and knees, and that's why it was a couple of days of treatment, and he wasn't ready. He didn't practice enough to be fully ready for this game. And when you can skip a
long plane ride.
Exactly. And a long double game on the road.
No direct flights to
Portland.
Sandy, Utah either, right?
Yes, and it's like Real Salt Lake, then Portland. They're straight playing Wednesday in Portland. So Going to miss the 2 games, but at least he's not going to fly. He's going to rest his legs, so it might be beneficial for the future. At least that's the benefit of the doubt that I'm trying to give Didier Drogba, and quite logically, it makes sense too, because just look at last year, the amount of playing time he had when he got here, and the end of the season and his diminishing result in the playoff. Diminishing return, I mean. And you don't want that this year. You want to milk Didier Drogba for the most amount of positive play you can, and for that, you need to manage his schedule, and that's what's happening.
All right. Yeah, well, exactly. And I mean, look, the East is funny in the sense that Philly's beginning to slip back a little bit. NYCFC, no one knows what the hell they're doing it with right now. It's like they're winning with mirrors, but there they are on top. No one really trusts them, though, right? Like, it seems like this is still wide open for anyone to sort of grab it. And that's the one thing I would say that's frustrating, both from a TFC and an Impact perspective, is that you seem to have the talent there. There seems to be the talent there that if they could just get enrolled, just get healthy, that they could really grab this thing by the brass ring. But no one seems to want to do this in the East right now, and that's it's frustrating for everyone, I'm sure.
Speaking of a team that haven't grabbed that brass ring in a long time, Toronto faced Chicago last weekend.
Oh God! Look, I was talking to someone after the game. I said, this must have been what it was like to watch TFC 3 years ago as another team supporter, because I'm talking about watching Chicago. They're terrible. They are like they don't give up a ton of goals. In fairness, 21 goals allowed is one of the best records in the league, but they only scored 15 goals. There's nothing to them. Like, they don't look dangerous at all. There was never any point in that game, despite it being 1-0, that I thought that TFC was in danger of dropping it. Tobias is long gone. He wasn't showing up in that game, and TFC was the full deserved winners of it. Should they have scored more goals? Yeah, probably, and that continues to be an issue. I joked earlier that Vancouver was trying to emulate TFC 2015. I think Toronto was trying to emulate Vancouver 2015 too. They own 19 goals for, one of the worst records in the league right now, and Javinko on a 7-game scoreless streak. This is not ideal, especially heading into what I think, because we're in it, is the most important week so far in Toronto's season. 3 games against 3 winnable teams. I think I said this to someone else, not live on here, but of those 9 points, if they don't come out with 7 out of those 9, I think that maybe there's problems here. There's something to be frightened about. They've got struggling Columbus, which is the second worst team in the league, on Wednesday on the road, and then they play San Jose in the weekend, which is not exactly a star-studded powerhouse team either, right? So To me, there are points to be had there, and if you can get 7 of 9 points, and I'll give a draw in one of those 2 road games, because it's hard to play 2 road games on the trot. But if you can get 7 points, then suddenly you're right back in the mix for the top of the East again, and panic over. But if you had ended up with like 2 or 1 or hell 0, like, God, where's the panic button? Where can I push it? I want to push a button. Where is it, Kevin? Like, that's what it would have been, right?
No, exactly. And it's quite an interesting week you mentioned for Toronto, but for MLS as a whole, a lot of games this Wednesday and next Saturday and Sunday. A lot of teams are on a double schedule to make up for the Euro break and the international break of the Copa a few weeks ago. So there's a lot of games on the docket in the next few days.
Exactly. And it's always busy this time of year, and you got the the transfer window open as well to keep an eye on. So there'll be a lot of Major League Soccer news coming our way in the days ahead. Kevin, let's take a quick look at the NASL. We're going to have a little more detail on this next week. I think one of our shows this week will focus on the NASL a little bit. We do have the interview I did with Steven Sandor last week that unfortunately I can't run, but I can sort of talk to you about it, Kevin, and we can sort of make some notes and get the information that Steven gave us out there, because it is worthwhile. I'll re-listen to it, see what I can drag out of it, see what I can save from it. So certainly we will do a big focus on the NASL this week at some point, because we don't have the Euro to talk about anymore. So that's kind of sad, but
it's back to the grind. We are embracing the grind.
Yeah, well, this is our specialty, though. I mean, I think anyone can do a Euro show for a month. It's the true geniuses that can stimulate a daily show based on the NASL and MLS.
Did you call us geniuses? Nice.
Yeah,
I second you on that. I'll toot our own horn. Fine.
Exactly. All right, both Canadian NASL teams played on Sunday, and Rayo beat Ottawa, so Ottawa's continuing to struggle. But FC Edmonton with a big 1-0 win over Fort Lauderdale. One of the big talking points this weekend.
Yes. Oh, my God.
And it's not a Canadian story, but I think we should bring it up. There are some Canadian players on the team. Is that
they're not getting anyways.
Yeah, apparently it came out that Fort Lauderdale has not been consistently paying their players.
So Division 1, you number 1 Division 1 USSF. True. Yes, you're not paying your players. Fine. Yeah, you really want that tag now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that what they'd say is that they, part of their financial issues is they don't have Division 1 status, and it's a chicken and an egg argument. But
fine.
Nonetheless, if you aspire to be at the top, you can't do stuff like that.
There's not a lot of things, Duane, that get me going than not paying your players. How would you feel if you go get your paycheck and it's not there? It's unacceptable. It's literally unacceptable.
I have experienced it before. Obviously not as a professional athlete, but as someone who does freelance work, I have not been paid for work I did and was promised for, and had to wait months and months and months past due to get it before. And it's infuriating, obviously, and it makes you not want to do good work for them, or not do, in my case, not to stop doing work
stop
for
doing
them.
anything with them. Yeah,
yeah, and because I have that option. Unfortunately, these players who are. That's what I always get frustrated with this too. Is that ultimately, we kind of look at professional athletes in a way and we put them on a pedestal and think they're like bigger than life, but they're ultimately guys, especially at the NASL level, they're chasing a dream still, right? So it's kind of unfair for these teams to hold them over a barrel like this, because they're going to keep playing for free because they still want to be pro soccer players and they still believe that they can make a higher level, and they still think that all it's going to be is to have the right game at the right time. So they're not really in a position emotionally to walk away, which is what they kind of need to do when you're not getting paid. Yeah. But they can't, because this is their options that they have to be a professional soccer player. So basically, if you're not getting a paycheck, your choice is to call up the bank and see if you can get an extension on the loan. Call mom and dad, because these are young guys in a lot of cases, and see if they can float you some money, and maybe take a part-time job. Like, that's what their options are, because they're not going to walk away from being that pro player and having maybe that potential of moving on, because there are examples of guys that have gotten opportunities out of the NASL before, and they don't want to give that up, and you can't really blame them, because as someone who played sports and wanted to be good at sports and never quite could be good enough, I would have killed to have the opportunity to play at a league like NASL, and I probably would have played for free too. So it really is infuriating. It's frustrating to see from the outside, and hopefully it's been happening for a few months, and now that it's gone public, hopefully that'll be the sort of the shaming that's needed to make this get resolved.
Well, yeah, and just to put this in perspective, we mentioned let's put numbers on this so people realize. We're not talking about stars that are making millions of dollars with the strikers here. We're talking about players that are making probably a salary the same as you are listening to this, very close to it. So imagine you not getting your paycheck every 2 weeks when you're supposed to. How would you react? How would you feel? How would you feel diminished? All those things come into play. And when I saw that, when you sent me that news, I lost it. It's a good thing there was nobody close to me, because I was not saying nice words and I was not saying them really. I were pretty loud. So yeah, for me it's unacceptable. Not paying your in our situation, in our society nowadays in North America, not paying your professional. No place. I have no sympathy whatsoever.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate too from a pure on the pitch perspective too, because Fort Lauderdale had been doing well. And when this started to come out, it sort of came to light after they had to make a few sales of some of their foreign talent. They had to get rid of them, and that means that they're going to struggle. So it's not fair to the fans either that it bought in with the good intention, that signed the imaginary social contract to invest emotionally in the team, and now they're going to watch this team walk away, and it's just unfortunate. All right, real quickly before we say goodbye on the show, the overall standings, which are the ones we look at in the second half. FC Edmonton still continues to be in there, looking for that playoff spot. Their first ever, 21 points on the overall table. They currently sit third on that table. Really, it would be second, because India 11 already clinched the playoff spot. So, they're still in there with a great chance to be one of the top 4 teams back in the fall when the playoffs kick off, and hopefully that will happen for them. Kevin, any final thoughts before we say goodbye on our Two Solitudes /Soccer Today show today?
No, just stay tuned to the Sports Podcasting Network. A lot of new shows are coming this week. And as always, 11 a.m. every day, Monday to Friday, on the SPN Radio, Soccer Today. So see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. And until then, have a great soccer. You were listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us, sportspodcastingnetwork.com.